we are continuing from Friday. So this is on the first part of the notes. On Friday, we just found out the possible roots. Today, we are actually going to find out which one is a root. A root is when we get to the number of factors when it's x plus or minus. And so to check to see if it's a possible root is an actual root, plug it into your function, and if the result equals 0, it is a root. Once you have found the root, divide it out to see if it's a fact, to see if you can factor. If not, keep trying possibilities. One great thing is for the Inspires and the 83 calculators, they each have a feature that we're going to be using. Everybody find the button that says STO and an arrow. STO. It is in yellow above VAR. And so, for you to get to that yellow, you have to hit the control button. And so everybody do this with me. Hit control, or excuse me, hit control again one more time. -1, then control.
Control stole.
And then hit your store.
I'm confused.
So
Mine
this is
says
the,
none.
okay. So -1, control store, and then hit X.
What is store? The VAR.
Right above the VAR.
-1.
What your screen will look like if you do this is -1, arrow, X.
And then enter.
And then if you press enter, it will say -1. So what this has done is told your calculator what X equals. This is the value X is. Now, if I type in the equation, so the equation on this one was -2x cubed plus, was it plus 5x? No, positive 2x cubed. Sorry. Plus 5x squared minus x minus 6. If I type that in my calculator followed by the enter, what number do I result in? What comes out?
-2.
So we are going to do this process for all the possible roots. And so we are going to do this as a class. I'm about to assign you a number.
Okay.
Allison, you are positive. Yeah, you're a positive one. So we are going to do this for every number on the possible roots. The process is take the number that you're trying to plug in, hit. So if I wanted to do 1, then control store X. Now press enter. Don't do anything further until I tell you the next step. Everybody find your up arrow. Like the around the little cursor area. Hit up until you have covered the previous equation you typed in. Press enter and press enter again. You do not have to retype the equation every single time. What you'll do is you'll store your new number into your variable and then go back in and redo that plug-in process. And the calculator is basically saying, now my X is whatever number it was you chose. Okay. So try again. So at -1, we resulted in a -2. +1, what did you result in? Allison?
0. I had 2.
2, what'd you get?
28.
What'd you have? Who was next? Who had negative 2? Oh. What?
How do you get that number? You just have
Okay.
-2.
Store. So here's a list after we plugged them in. This is the result we ended up with. When we plugged in the first number into x, this is what came out as our y. Now, that means these are our roots. Now, the other thing is sometimes you won't have 3 that will show up as your roots. We know we have 3 in this case because the exponent is a third. Sometimes you won't have 3 that show up because one of them can be used more than once. Or we could have imaginary or complex. So I'm going to walk you through the process to find the other ones if it doesn't show up easily. Which one do you want to use to be our division process? 1? So if it is x equals 1, the factor that would result in, that root will result in the factor of x minus 1 equals 0. So we're going to have to take that and divide it into the polynomial we had. 2x cubed plus 5x squared minus x minus 6. So it's going to go in the same process that we did last week. So how many columns will I have?
There are 3.
3 they'll get used, but 1 will be the remainder. And our remainder should be 0. If our remainder comes up as anything but 0, we did something wrong. So technically 3 is right, but there is that 4th one that's going to be the remainder if you need it. And so we have 2x cubed that gets placed in the top left box. And now we need to go through the process to try to find what gets factored out and what's left behind. So 2x cubed divided by x is what?
2x squared.
2x squared. 2x squared times a negative x is negative 2x squared. Now I'm taking that and I am trying to create a positive 5x squared. So negative 2x squared plus what is 5x squared?
7x.
So now we have 7x squared. I take that and divide it by x, and that gives me what? Times a negative 1 gives me a. Now I'm going to take and try to create a negative x. These two need to create the negative x.
Positive 7.
Not positive 7, because that would be a 0.
Oh, 6.
Positive 6x,
Because your 7's negative.
because your 7's negative. So we need it to be opposite signed to get smaller. And to get to 1, we need it to be where it's 1 less.
I put 6. I don't know why I said negative 6.
6x divided by x is
6.
times the negative 1. That matches the last number. So that means that we did it correctly. Now, we are going to take and completely factor. And so, x minus 1 times x, 2x squared plus 7x plus 6. So we're going to be doing the inside out in boxes. It's very similar to what we've been doing. We don't have one of the sides, though, given to us. And so we have to use some trial and error to find the numbers that will work. Because this is factoring when there's no remainder. Since our highest is x squared, that means we had that box that was the 2 by 2
Oh.
that we did earlier. I didn't get myself in a frame. I'm just going to keep doing it the same way I've been doing division, writing them on that same side. So what would go in the top left-hand corner? Because what we need to factor is the second one. What would go in the top left-hand corner in this case? What goes in the bottom right-hand corner? What went in the bottom right-hand corner? The 6. These middle two spots have to combine to give us that positive 7. Just like the diagonals had to combine to give us each of the spots. But we know something else about them. They're going to multiply to give us 12x squared. By multiplying these two spots, that tells us what they're going to multiply to be. 3 and 4. 3x and 4x. They both match in sign to give us a positive 12. And the sign, is it going to be positive or negative? Positive. It does not matter which spot you put them in. So if I factor out my first column, what can divide into both pieces? What can divide into both pieces of my second column?
3.
On my first row,
2x.
not 2x.
1x.
And my last row. So that gives us x minus 1, 2x plus 3, and the last one being x plus 2. So if it asked us to factor it, this is where I would stop. But if it asks us for what the roots are, that's when you take those factors and set them each equal to 0. So x minus 1 equals 0. 2x plus 3 equals 0. And x plus 2 equals 0. And we're going to solve each one of those. So x minus 1 equals 0. That means x had to be a 1. On the middle one, we had to subtract 3 from both sides, giving us 2x is equal to a negative 3. Divide by 2, giving us x is equal to negative 3 halves. And on the last one, x equals a negative 2. So those are our 3 roots. So roots are when it's the number, factors when it's the binomial. And tonight, you're going to have a matching, and you have to figure out which one goes with which. You can start by trying to see if there's any of these that give you zeros, and that's one of the benefits of going through and doing all of them versus just doing one. Is you can sometimes see, if you have 3 of them and you know you need 3, that gives them all to you. And you can stop here and not have to divide. Tomorrow, we're going to add in some that have irrational roots or complex roots. And so that's the reason knowing how to divide is a part of it for tomorrow is going to be important.
So we only have to do the box thing for one of them and find out all 3?
Yes. So you could choose whichever one of those that you like the best. If there happens to be no constant, factor out an x first and see if you can factor it by hand. You might be able to factor it by hand. And if not, you can use this method to help you find the others.